I still remember that morning as if it happened yesterday. The Mumbai winter air had a bite to it, not cold enough to freeze, but sharp enough to make you hug your shawl tighter. I was exhausted, physically and emotionally, walking through the entrance of the Mumbai Children's Hospital, carrying my daughter in my arms. Her name is Anaya. She was 6 then, bright eyes, soft curls, the kind of child who used to run faster than the wind in our courtyard. But after the accident, her legs stopped moving, and my world, my entire world, shifted. I was barely holding it together, doing the hospital routine, week after week, seeing therapists, neurologists, and hearing the same rehearsed phrases. Progress takes time. She's young, let's be hopeful. Let's wait and see. But nothing changed. And hope? It was a luxury I couldn't afford. That morning, as I stepped out of the car, I didn't notice him at first. Just another child sitting near the gate on a flattened cardboard piece, sketching something in a weathered notebook. His clothes were mismatched, one sandal was tied with thread. But his eyes, sharp, observant, were watching everything. As I walked toward the entrance, holding Anaya tightly wrapped in her pink shawl, the boy stood up. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I can help your daughter walk again." I froze. Not because I was offended or annoyed, but because of how he said it. Calm, certain, like he knew. "What did you just say?" I asked, honestly startled. "I can help her walk," he repeated. I looked him over, from his patched sweater to his cracked glasses hanging from his neck. "That's not something to joke about," I said sharply. "I'm not joking," he replied simply. There was no fear in his voice, no mischief, just sincerity. It should have been easy to walk away. And I did. I walked into that hospital without another word. But the truth is, his words never left me. And that's where it all began. I don't know exactly what made me go back. Maybe it was exhaustion from hearing the same polite but hopeless words from every doctor. Maybe it was the calmness in that strange boy's voice. Or maybe it was just what mothers do. We chase even the faintest flicker of hope. I told myself it was just to check, just to say I'd tried everything. "Shivaji Park, Sunday at noon," I said to Anaya. Just a short visit. But deep down, I was looking for him. We arrived a little before noon. The park was mostly quiet, some kids playing cricket, a few old men walking their dogs. And then I saw him. Aarav. He was sitting under a large banyan tree, near a folded towel and a small duffel bag. He looked just the same. Oversized sweater, worn-out slippers, calm eyes. Not worried, just waiting. "You came," he said simply, like he'd known all along we would. I gently lowered Anaya into a portable chair. She was staring at him, curious, unsure. "What are you going to do?" I asked cautiously. Aarav unzipped his bag. Inside were a cloth-wrapped rice pack, an old tennis ball, a jar of coconut oil, and a pair of socks. "Same things my mother used," he said softly. "Heat loosens muscles. Ball helps with pressure points. Oil makes the stretch easier. She used to help army uncles in the village. No machines, only her hands." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You're only 9, I said. "I'm not a doctor," he replied, "but I know how to begin." Anaya looked at me. I gave her a small nod. "I won't hurt," Aarav said gently to her. "If anything feels strange, just say stop." Then he started. He placed the warm rice pack on her thighs and asked, "Too hot?" She shook her head. "It feels nice," she whispered. After a few minutes, he slowly moved her legs, gentle, steady rotations, not forceful. While working, he kept asking her questions about her favorite food, her favorite cartoon, her favorite color. At first, her replies were short. Then she began asking questions too. "Do you go to school? Where do you live? How do you know all this?" He paused, then said quietly, "My mother taught me, but she passed away." Anaya looked down. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He gave her a small smile. "Thank you." I didn't speak. I just watched. Something inside me softened. It wasn't magic. Not yet. But it was something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. We kept coming back. Every Sunday at noon, like clockwork, Anaya and I would arrive at Shivaji Park. Aarav was always there before us, sitting under the same tree, the towel already laid out, his little bag neatly packed beside him. He never rushed, never made promises, just worked gently and patiently, warming Anaya's legs, rotating her ankles, tapping lightly on pressure points, and talking to her like she wasn't broken, just resting. Week after week, I watched my daughter go from shy glances to soft giggles. I watched her hands relax, her shoulders drop. She wasn't just being treated, she was being seen. And somehow, that made a difference. Then, one Sunday, it happened. Aarav had just finished a set of stretches. He knelt down and tapped lightly on Anaya's knee. "Feel that?" Anaya blinked. I felt something, like pressure." My heart stopped. Aarav looked up at me calmly. "That's good, Auntie. That's very good." I crouched down beside her. "You really felt it?" She nodded, eyes wide. It wasn't much. Not movement. Not yet. But it was something. After months of silence from her legs, it was something. That night, I stood in the kitchen with a cup of tea growing cold in my hands. I didn't notice how long I'd been staring at the floor until Anaya wheeled herself in and said, "Mama, do you think Aarav's magic?" I smiled. "No, Beta. I think Aarav remembers something the rest of us forgot." "What's that?" "Sometimes healing starts with someone believing in you." Anaya looked thoughtful. "He believes in me." I nodded. "So do I." And for the first time since the accident, my voice didn't shake when I said it. It was our 4th Sunday at Shivaji Park. By now, the routine had become a part of our lives. Aarav's calm presence, Anaya's small smiles, the stretches, the stories, they had become our version of therapy. But that Sunday, something was different. Anaya was quiet in the car. Too quiet. When we reached the park, she didn't look at Aarav. Her arms were crossed, her face set in frustration. "She doesn't want to do it today," I told him gently as I lifted her into the chair. Aarav paused. "Can I ask why?" Anaya didn't answer. Then suddenly, she burst out. "I tried to move my legs this morning, and nothing happened. I'm tired. Tired of hoping, tired of failing. What's the point?" I felt the weight of her words like stones on my chest. Rahul might have responded with logic, but Aarav didn't. He knelt down slowly beside her. "You think I never get tired?" he said softly. "You think I didn't cry in the shelter when my mom couldn't buy medicine, and I couldn't do anything but sit and wait?" Anaya looked at him for the first time that day. "You're allowed to be angry," he continued. "I get angry too. But if you stop now, the part of you that wants to walk might stop trying too." There was a long silence. Then she whispered, "I'm scared." My breath caught in my throat. The next Sunday felt different. There was a quiet buzz in the air, not of expectation, but of calm determination. Anaya sat straighter in her chair. She didn't say much, but her eyes were focused, and her hands stayed still in her lap. Aarav greeted us with his usual smile, but even he seemed more thoughtful than usual. They began the routine: warm pack on her thighs, gentle stretches, a few pressure taps along the knees. I sat nearby, watching every movement like it was sacred. Then Aarav said softly, "Let's try something, okay?" He knelt beside Anaya, tapped gently on her ankle. "Can you try to move your foot? Just a little. Think about it like a feather. Just enough to feel it shift." Anaya nodded. She closed her eyes. Her brow furrowed. Seconds passed, then a few more. And then, just barely, her right foot slid forward. I gasped. Aarav's hand remained steady, but he looked up at me and nodded once. Anaya opened her eyes and stared at her foot. "I did that?" she whispered. "You did," Aarav replied. I dropped to my knees and hugged her, trembling. "You did it, Anaya. You moved." Her eyes filled with tears. It felt real. "It was real," I whispered. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by Anaya's bedside, just watching her breathe. She looked peaceful for the first time in so long, and in my heart, something long locked away cracked open. Belief. This wasn't over. There were more struggles ahead, but for the first time, I knew my daughter would walk again. I'm scared too, Aarav replied. But scared doesn't mean stop. It just means you're getting close to something big. Anaya wiped her eyes. Okay, she said. Let's try again. And they did. No big miracle happened that day. No sudden steps. But the fight came back into her eyes. She started trying again. Not just physically, but with her heart. And that, I realized, was sometimes even more powerful than movement. It was the 9th Sunday. By now, Shivaji Park felt less like a place and more like a part of our healing ritual. Families had started to take notice. A few would pass by and stay to watch. Some asked questions. One mother even brought her son, a quiet boy with a leg brace. Aarav welcomed them all, always with the same gentle smile. But that Sunday, something felt different. The sun was warmer, the breeze slower. Anaya was quieter than usual, her hands folded in her lap. But she wasn't withdrawn. She was focused. When Aarav saw her, he gave a small nod, almost like he already knew what she was preparing for. He laid the towel on the grass, took out the warm packs, and then looked at me. I think she's ready to try standing, he said softly. My heart skipped. Are you sure? I whispered. He didn't answer with words, just turned to Anaya. You ready, Anaya? She didn't smile. She just nodded. We moved to the center of the mat. Aarav knelt in front, guiding her legs into place. I stood behind her, my hands under her arms. 1, 2, 3. We lifted, and she stood. Her knees shook, her arms wobbled. But she was upright, on her own 2 feet. My hands loosened. Aarav slowly stepped back. She didn't fall. Around us, the park went silent. Then, just like that, she opened her eyes, and a slow smile spread across her face. I'm standing, she whispered. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. She took a step, then another, then a third, and then she fell, right into my arms. I caught her, crying and laughing at the same time. You did it, I said. My baby, you did it. Anaya turned to Aarav, breathless. You said I would. He smiled gently. I said we'd try. Word spread. Not through newspapers or television. At least, not yet. It started with whispers between mothers in hospital waiting rooms, nurses talking over lunch, a therapist who'd heard something unbelievable from a parent at the clinic. They say there's a boy, not a doctor, but a healer. By the following Sunday, we weren't the only ones at Shivaji Park. 3 other families waited near the banyan tree. One had a daughter recovering from a stroke. Another brought a boy in a wheelchair. The third just came to watch, skeptical but curious. Aarav looked around and quietly unpacked 2 more towels. He didn't panic, didn't act surprised. He simply nodded and said, We'll take turns. That day, Anaya didn't get a full session. And she didn't complain. She watched as Aarav showed the other parents how to warm rice packs, how to stretch without strain, how to talk to their children like they were more than their diagnoses. You're not broken, I heard him tell a little girl. You're just learning a different way to be strong. I didn't realize I was crying until Anaya touched my arm. Mama, she said, I like watching him help people. I smiled. So do I, Beta. In the weeks that followed, more families came. 5, then 10. A local uncle from the neighborhood began bringing chai and biscuits. Someone printed simple flyers, free movement sessions. Sundays, Shivaji Park. Led by Aarav. They didn't write his last name. No titles, no degrees, just Aarav. And somehow, that was enough. It was bound to happen. One morning, a nurse from the children's hospital was walking her dog past Shivaji Park when she recognized a familiar giggle. Anaya's. She stopped, stunned, watching my daughter stand with help, lift her knees, smile like she hadn't in months. And beside her, as always, was Aarav. She didn't interrupt, Just watched for a while, then went home and told her sister, who worked in patient services. A few days later, a local reporter came by. Notepad in hand, camera slung around her neck. She approached me first. "Is it true?" she asked. "Your daughter was paralyzed?" I hesitated, then looked at Anaya, now helping another child roll a ball under their foot, laughing. "Yes," I said quietly. "But now she's learning to walk." The article ran on the second page of the Mumbai Sunday Chronicle. The headline read, "9-year-old boy helps kids heal in City Park." They didn't publish Aarav's full name. He didn't want it. "It's not about me," he told the reporter. "It's about them." But that didn't stop the world from noticing. A physiotherapist offered to mentor him. A local nonprofit offered to sponsor equipment. Someone donated yoga mats. A retired teacher volunteered to tutor him part-time. People stopped looking past Aarav. They started seeing him. And yet, he never changed. He still wore the same sweater, still brought the same rice packs, still knelt on the same towel. And every Sunday, before helping anyone else, he always looked at Anaya first. "You ready?" he would ask her, and she would always nod. It happened slowly, then all at once. One Sunday, as we were packing up, I turned to Aarav and asked the question I'd been holding in for weeks. "Where do you go after this?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Around." "Do you have somewhere to sleep?" I asked, my voice softer now. "Sometimes," he replied, without shame, just honesty. That night, after Anaya had gone to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, turning the question over and over in my mind. The boy who gave everything had nothing, and we had a spare room, an open door. The next morning, he stood at our gate with a rolled-up blanket, a worn-out backpack, and that same calm face. "You meant it?" "And?" he asked. I opened the door wide. Always. From that day on, Aarav was not just the boy in the park. He was part of our home. He had a bed, a desk, clean clothes, books. But more than that, he had laughter at dinner, morning chai, and Anaya's endless questions. He never missed a Sunday, never let anyone down. Anaya now walks small distances with support. She's stronger, braver, louder. And every time someone asks how, she points to Aarav. "That's the boy who helped me remember I could." And as for me, I don't just see a healer. I see the son I never expected, but will never let go of. Aarav doesn't talk much about dreams, but one evening, while sketching at the table, he looked up and said, "I want to help people walk again, like my mother did." I smiled. "Then we'll make sure you can." That same night after dinner, I found Aarav sitting alone on the veranda. The sketchbook lay open on his lap, but he wasn't drawing, just staring up at the sky, the stars barely peeking through the city haze. I sat beside him, waiting in silence. After a long pause, his voice broke softly, barely above a whisper. "She used to tell me that helping people was like planting seeds. You might never see them grow, but they bloom anyway." His hands trembled a little. I gently placed mine over his. "I still miss her every night," he said. "Sometimes I pretend she's just in the next room, that if I'm quiet enough, I'll hear her humming again." Tears slipped down his cheeks, but he didn't wipe them away. "I know she's not here," he added, looking at me now, voice cracking. "But sometimes, when Anaya smiles, or when you bring me tea just the way she used to, I feel like she is." He took a shaky breath, then whispered, "I think she'd be happy that I found you." I couldn't speak, and I just pulled him close. And in that quiet moment, under the soft hum of streetlights, I held him, not just like a guest in our home, but like a son who had finally come home.